Welcome back to Empowered and Out, the podcast that helps LGBTQ plus professionals reclaim their purpose, rebuild their confidence, and thrive in careers where they don't have to mask who they are. Today on Empowered and Out, we are diving into the world of leadership, kindness, and psychological safety because let's face it, thriving at work isn't just about hitting goals. It's about creating a space where people feel safe to show up as their full selves. My guest, Sarah Scala, is a powerhouse consultant, coach, and educator with a high energy approach that transforms executives, leaders, and teams across the US and around the globe. She helps organizations boost revenue, reduce turnover, and create environments where high performance and inclusion go hand in hand. From her early days discovering the magic of trust and teamwork in high school adventure learning, to leading corporate learning at Kohler Company, to launching her own consulting firm in 2012, Sarah has built a career dedicated to growing leaders, especially LGBTQ plus leaders, with resilience, optimism, and grit. She's worked across cultures, industries, and geographies, and she knows how to create spaces where leaders don't just survive, they shine. So whether you're a seasoned executive, an emerging leader, or someone who wants to make your workspace a better place for everyone, this conversation will give you the tools and the inspiration to lead with kindness and courage. So if you're a longtime listener or tuning in for the first time, I am so glad you're here. Sarah, welcome to Empowered and Out.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's great to be here.
Well, so let's start with your story. So you've been working in leadership development since your teens. Can you share that first spark you had for trust and teamwork and how it shaped your career path?
Absolutely. Well, I went to high school in Falmouth, Massachusetts on Cape Cod. And as part of our phys ed or gym programs at Falmouth High School, we had a program called Project Adventure. Project Adventure is known worldwide for bringing experiential learning, team building, ropes and challenge courses, and outdoor learning to help kids, teenagers, adults, and companies really build trust and support the evolution of a team. And so in high school, I was 16, 17, 18 years old, participating in these programs, playing on ropes courses, solving problems with the team or my classmates. And I quickly discovered the power of experiential or adventure-based learning to build trust with teams. I saw how creating spaces for people to feel safe and supported could help them achieve more than they thought that they could. And I saw, and that spark, that really stayed with me. I carried that with me to college for my undergraduate program, Jonathan, at Green Mountain College in Vermont, where I studied. I have a double major in business management and in adventure recreation. And later, I've had roles in teaching, consulting, developing leaders, and facilitation. And so over time, that passion has really grown into my own firm, where I support clients in multiple locations. So at the heart of it, my work has always been about unlocking human potential through connection, through trust, through inclusion, and through growth.
That's awesome. That actually sounds really fun. Because I love one of the things. I went to a camp growing up, but it wasn't anything school related. But it was when I went to the camp for 9 years, and when I got older is when I trusted the obstacle courses a little bit more. But the ropes course, the climb, all of it was so much fun. It's one of the things I looked back as a counselor when I worked there. I was like, this is really fun. I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to do it. I would always encourage campers to do it because you get that trust, you trust in yourself, but then you get that trust from in our case, like our cabin mates and like some of the other other people in the camp just to help, maybe, get through a fear that you might have had, like, because these obstacle courses were not just, a few feet off the ground. They were probably 40, 50 feet at least off the ground. So if you had a fear of heights, it probably wasn't the course for you to go on. But if you wanted to, get over that fear, it definitely was what you needed to do. But so looking back, do you think that early experience influenced the way that you approach leadership coaching today?
Absolutely. Later in my career, after I graduated from high school, had a few corporate, positions, I was brought in to work for the Kohler company, as you mentioned. Kohler is a world leader in sinks, toilets, baths, golf courses, et cetera, et cetera. And Kohler had a P&L, profit and loss business called the Kohler Experiential Learning Center. And so I was brought in as the general manager of the Learning Center, where I'd be trusted with a team of 9 to design, facilitate, and lead team development programs for Fortune 50 clients. So I would be working with GE and McDonald's and Procter & Gamble and Sargento Cheese and Johnsonville Sausage, to name a few, that were coming to our center to really build leadership, build inclusion, build trust, and team effectiveness. When I think about experiential learning as it relates to my coaching, I think it's embedded in the fact that when I have coaching clients, whether it's teams, board of directors, or leaders that I'm working with, it's never just come to the session and then it's over. It gets very experientialized, Jonathan, based on the practices, the homework I give them, the reflection assignments, the testing and trying of different approaches that happen in between our coach sessions as well.
That's great. And I think when you give homework, when you do these exercises, it's going to help those leaders become even better. And they're going to be more strengthened because they have something to reflect back on, to keep looking back at. I think that is actually key to leaders in general being successful, when they can go back to, okay, how did I put that into place? Or what did I learn? What was that phrase that I learned? So I think that that's great. I give my clients homework because I feel that if you're not proactive in your own self, in the workplace, even in yourself, how are you going to have success? Just because if you're going to do, unfortunately, as we know, there are some times when you're doing the same thing over and over again, you get the same result. And a lot of times that's why they hire us, because they're getting that same result. They need a different result. And so I think when we give, our leaders, our, clients, whoever it might be, like that extra information, those handouts, whatever that might be, it helps to keep that. It's kind of like, you don't have to just keep it in the back of your mind. You actually get to have a true, either paper or a file or whatever it might be that you can actually refer back to, which I think is really, really huge, because I still go back to certain documents that from things that I have learned. And if I didn't have the opportunity to do that, sure, I could probably Google it, but I think it's means more when I can actually look at my own notes. What did I write about that? What did that mean to me?
Yeah, absolutely, Jonathan. I think a lot of the practices or homework are things people are physically doing. So if a client wants to work on delegation or building confidence, we work through what that might look like to practice and try back at work, and they're doing it. So it's more than sending an email and certainly having support documents always helps, but I want them to apply what they've learned. Without application, it's death by lecture. And so I'm real big on clients putting their learning, whether they're in my classes, at my speaking events, or a coaching client, to apply what they've learned, and the sooner the better.
For sure. I've always heard, and I follow through with it, taking action, even if it's messy action, you at least learn. And then you become better the more you take that kind of action. Because if you don't do anything, you're never going to see the changes. So
And you'll forget it too. You're much more likely to forget it. What a waste.
So,
What a
yeah,
waste of an investment.
exactly. So you talk a lot about kindness at work, and I love this. I really do. You won't be my only podcast guest that we talk about kindness in the workplace, and I
Awesome.
love this. I'm very, very excited to share this because it's so important. But just to ask you, why do you think kindness is so often misunderstood as a weakness in the workplace?
I think many workplaces still equate kindness or still equate toughness with effectiveness, and kindness gets labeled as being soft. But in my experience, kindness is actually a strength. It builds loyalty, it lowers turnover, it helps perform at a higher level. Being kind doesn't mean we're lowering our expectations. It means we're creating environments where people feel respected, valued, and this fuels their performance. Um, Recently, a report by MetLife came out earlier this year that found that workers who felt cared for were 92% more engaged. 92%, which is huge. And
That is huge.
76% said that empathic leaders boosted their motivation. So this isn't a weakness, it's a business value. Unkind leadership costs organization far more than disengagement and attrition than kind leadership ever could. And so really it's all about trying to be kind with accountability, with empathy to create great workplaces where people feel like they're included, they belong, that we trust them, that they trust us, and they're going to be more engaged. And we know from 25 years of research on engagement in the workplace has a huge impact on innovation, on success, and on managing changes that seem to happen more and more.
I agree with you. And that's a staggering study. My goodness. I mean, wow. But to me, it's very interesting with kindness because it's something that's so simple. It's such a term that is so simple. Like you said, if you're kind, it sounds like we're being weak and we're being soft. But if really it's not, it's showing respect in people. And I would say, if anything, especially in the LGBTQ plus community, kindness is very key to probably the success of those professionals. Because I think when you're not seeing that, a lot of times you might revert, you might put up a wall, you might mask yourself in a way that you might not have had you gotten that kindness. So can you share an example, Sarah, where kindness actually strengthened performance or accountability outside of that study that you just talked about?
Yeah. So when I think about my work and my career, I just wrapped up a 6 month executive coaching engagement with a senior director of inclusion and belonging at an Ivy League university. We just had our last session last week, and they've written me a beautiful testimonial. They're trying to, renew work with me. They're recommending me to people in their projects and programs. But what he said to me really, really hit home. He said, I have a therapist. I've gained some mentors since we've been working together. I feel like I've really built a solid support system. But as a professional member of the LGBT community, he said, your work as my coach has really helped me navigate trauma earlier in my life and career. And I was like, wow, that's huge, because I'm not his therapist. I do not do
Mm-hmm.
therapy. There's an ethical line. It's illegal for me to cross. And he said that. I know you're not my therapist, but our work together, helping me be stronger, helping him be stronger, really had a huge impact on his life at work and outside of work. And I think the way that I showed up for him, and again, 6 months of working together, always started with a place of kindness, a place of empathy, a way to try to understand. Now, I'm extremely holding him accountable because this Ivy League university is paying for me to coach him. So there's that, measurement of performance piece that comes in. But for him to tell me that my kindness, my empathy, my support really helped him move forward in long-term trauma was huge. And that just happened last week. So that's the most recent example I can think of. But it just was beautiful. When he shared that with me, I was really moved.
I mean, as you should be. That's such a huge compliment.
Yeah.
And it, to say how much it changed him. And truthfully, a 6-month time period is a decent amount of time. Yeah. And so to see and feel that empathy, that kindness, and that time period, and to be able to see, I'm sure other people in his, in his circle are seeing those results from learning that, because I feel that anything that we learn in general, if it's good or bad, how we're treated, does pour over to our friends, our family, our coworkers, whoever it might be, just because, that's just life. That's how we work, Yeah. So empathy and accountability. We've touched on empathy a few times. Those two can feel like they're in tension sometimes. How do you help leaders balance compassion with holding people to high standards?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when potential clients or clients first meet with me, that's one of the first things I let them know. I said I'm a coach, a speaker, a facilitator, a consultant that balances empathy with accountability. And I think it's such an important balance. Leaders sometimes think that it's either or. You're either empathetic or you're tough. But the best leaders that I've ever worked with and worked for do both. Empathy helps you understand what's going on with the people, with the person. But accountability ensures that we're still getting the stuff done. The rubber hits the road. And when you show people you care, but you hold them to that high standard, they rise to it, I find. And that's where growth tends to happen. So having us paying attention with empathy doesn't, like I said before, doesn't mean that we're lowering our standards or holding them to a lower level. Far from it. It often means that they're performing at an even higher level. And the reality is, in a time when employee engagement is at a 10-year low, empathetic leadership is not just beneficial, it's essential. So leading with empathy, it builds trust, it builds motivation, it builds loyalty. It is it's beneficial to lead with empathy because people will feel like you get them, you understand them, and you can help them be even better.
For sure. Yeah. I know with me, I had a job pretty recently. I did most of it when I first moved here to Colorado. I worked in in the funeral business, and we dealt with a lot of clients, obviously, that lost their loved ones.
Yeah.
And I thought I was empathetic initially before, and I was complimented many times on my empathy. Now, I will admit, I don't feel like I got my true strength as being empathetic until I actually did feel the loss of a loved one. Like when my dad passed, I could then really feel what they felt when they lost that loved one, because I literally have been in your shoes. I know exactly what that feels like.
Yeah.
And I'm glad for the experience, but I feel for those people that are in the funeral business, because it takes special people. It takes special people to be leaders. Absolutely. If you're not, and especially creating an empathetic leader is huge. But same with me in my coaching. I'm empathetic, but I have that high standard. I give you, like we talked about a little bit earlier, I give you that homework. I give you that practice to make what I'm wanting to help you do is be a better employee, a better worker in the workplace. So I understand it. I've been there. I've felt those, those struggles. Now, I will 100% admit, I probably don't feel because I definitely spent many years in the workplace not as open in my true self as I was until near the end of working, in the workplace.
Wow.
So just because as I've mentioned recently on some other episodes, is that I read the room. I wasn't feeling comfortable enough to share and be truly my true self. So I had to kind of reel back a little bit. But I feel that when you get to be your true self, I feel that those high standards are great because it challenges you.
Mm-hmm.
It challenges you to be a better person. Like I took a leadership course with the last company I was with, and I loved it because they taught you how to be a leader, not a manager, and what the difference was. Don't manage your employees, lead them, because it's been proven time and time again, employees stay with companies when they're treated right. They get that accountability, they get that empathy, they get the accountability, but they're being led and not not micromanaged is really what it comes down to. They don't say that, but that really is the truth, a little bit so.
Absolutely. And I try to be careful when I talk about people bringing their authentic selves to work. As much as we want to help people feel like they can, in many communities today, even in the United States, it is not safe for people to bring their authentic selves, whether they may be people of color, they may be a member of our LGBT community. Here's my flag, I'm a proud member. Maybe people with disabilities or different abilities where it may not be or feel safe for them to come 100% as themselves. So we always want to try to build an environment where people feel comfortable, and we need to always recognize that what we feel like is needed for folks to be authentically themselves and what they feel safe being may often be two different things.
Oh, for sure. I believe that the one place they need to be they need to be, number one, comfortable in their own skin. Now, we obviously know, like you've said, there's many companies in this country that we probably can't be our true authentic self. But I think that if we get to a level that we feel at least a little bit of respect and we understand, like we're getting complimented on our work, on what we're, speaking up, then I feel that those in the community can still feel good about themselves and not always shying away to raise their hand in a meeting or possibly, look into leadership roles. I think that because when we have those people because there's always been the saying, oh, when you get to see someone like yourself, you strive for that.
Absolutely.
And when you don't, and that goes across the board, if you're black, white, whatever, male, female, LGBTQ plus, whatever, because if you don't see someone that looks like you or is a part of your own community, you may feel like, well, now I have to leave this company or I have to find somewhere where I can see this. I was fortunate in the last company I worked with, our CEO of the Americas portion of the company was an open gay male. And I was so impressed with him. And I had the opportunity to even walk with him at our Pride Parade. And it was kind of surreal because I'm like, okay, one thing because I'd walked in the parade many, many, many times, but to sit there walking, side by side with the CEO of the company. I don't know how many companies were walking in the parade that year that had their CEOs was an openly gay man and had been in a relationship. I mean, he proudly said he's been with his husband 25 years at that point. So, and he lived in Texas, but he would be here when he needed to be in the office in Colorado. But I thought that was the fact that he was open and out in Texas at that too, that's kind of impressive.
That
Because
is impressive.
I was in school in Texas in college, and
No,
it's not where I
different.
would want to
Yep.
be open and out for a company. But so, have you seen a shift in how organizations view the balance between empathy and accountability in recent years, especially post-pandemic? Because as we know, a lot of things changed post-pandemic.
Yeah. I think it really depends on the company, the industry, and who the leader or the leadership teams are, who's running HR, who's the CEO, who's on the C-suite, and what messaging they are sharing with the world, with their customers about, DEI or inclusion and belonging. I've seen there's been a shift with some companies, Target, for example, whose sales are down. And then we have Costco, who says we're not going anywhere, or Apple, or many major companies
Mm-hmm.
that are saying we're not going anywhere, and their business results are going way up. So it's been fascinating to watch what's going on. I know since the pandemic, there's been in some industries, companies, and geographies a push to get everyone back in the office all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
that takes away from, I think, the benefit many people may have experienced during pandemic when they got to work hybrid or remote. Maybe they have a disability, maybe they're less represented at work. Maybe they're a member of the LGBT community who isn't out at work. And so having more flexibility about when you have to be face to face in the office after pandemic has been interesting to watch. I don't know where it's all going to land. I see many companies are shifting to hybrid. Many are saying we're still remote 100% because we can do it. We're selling all this real estate in our offices, and we've proven we can do at or better. And then there's some that are saying you have to come back or you lose your job. So it's been an interesting push and pull politically, organizationally, and
Mm-hmm.
based on different industries. That's been a shift that I have seen. The workplace environments for sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we have a friend of ours who works in the financial world, and he was hired as being 100% remote.
Yes.
And yet, the company has changed their course. And he's now being told that, I don't remember when the date was. Sorry, my partner told me the date, but I don't remember. But he was told that pretty soon that he's going to have to be in the office again. And I don't remember if it's hybrid or full time, but that's a pretty
Wow.
big change. And I get it. A lot of these companies, as we know, have a lot of real estate. They've signed long-term leases or whatever it might be. And so I get it. But I personally, when I was doing hybrid, I got so much more done when I was not in the office than when I was
Yeah.
in the office.
Yeah.
And I mean, truly work stuff. Yes, I did laundry sometimes and we did some other things,
Of
But
course.
overall, when I was working and doing my job, 100%, I was much more effective at home because when I got into the office, I would have coworkers or whoever come up to me and say, "Oh, hey," start talking to me, and I would have to be like, "Okay, and go. You have this amount of time
Yeah.
because I have stuff that I need to get done." And because I chose certain days to be in the office when like my boss and my boss's boss were in the office because we always worked closely together. So when
Sure.
we were together, we had a lot of stuff that we had to get done. So when I would have others come by, I was like, okay, but can you maybe come back later? So yeah, it's very interesting how a lot of people are kind of being pushed back into the office. I personally, I think a hybrid is just still the better way to go. After I got to experience it, even for myself, and I know others who have, I just feel that more employees don't feel that stress like they do. It's
Yeah.
maybe a day or two less of having to deal with traffic, which causes stress. on both ends, going to work and going from work. And I know that, and obviously it depends on the industry, because some people want you in the office depending on what you're doing. My sister works in entertainment. They're trying to push them. She is in one of the few studios that didn't push right away to have everyone come back into the office, 4 days a week. And they're at a point now that they actually all are working from home, because they were changing offices. And so from different locations in Hollywood. So they had to take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I think that, I've seen how my sister works at home. It stresses me how she works at home. But that's just me. We have different working styles. Like, I'm a coach and I do the podcast. That is nothing at all that she could do. She has to be, she has an amazing team. She has amazing coworkers. She has to have that camaraderie in the office all the time. Where me, I'm like, I'm good. I'd rather have these conversations with like you and others, because personally, I think it's important, especially right now, especially in the political climate, to be sharing and talking about how we can be even better as LGBTQ plus professionals. And, just you've worked with so many LGBTQ plus leaders. And so what unique challenges do we face when trying to maintain resilience and optimism over the long haul?
Yeah, so for LGBT leaders, there's often an extra layer of pressure that we're under. Many of us navigate workplaces where we're still a minority or less represented, where sometimes inclusion feels fragile. And that can be resilience fatigue. We spend energy not on doing our job, but on managing bias or microaggressions or harassment at times, or even just the question of whether we can be out at work. Over time, that can be exhausting. A lot of research studies have shown for LGBT folks specifically that the workplace is exhausting for those exact reasons. So for long-term success, it's essential to build strong networks and support communities, practice self-care, celebrate progress along the way, and look out for each other. So resilience, or optimism or grit, positive psychology, competencies and skills, those aren't just about bouncing back. It's about having support, having the mindset to keep going. And that's how LGBT leaders stay bold, stay authentic, and impactful over the long haul. We have to take care of ourselves. And so when I'm having a hard day or a hard time, with work or projects, I make sure I'm getting enough sleep and I'm exercising even more. I'm riding my bike, I'm kayaking on the river, I'm running, I'm swimming in the pool, and it just keeps my head in a good place. I'm volunteering in the community. All of these things help sustain me. And I've been teaching about and speaking on the topic of optimism, resilience, and grit for over 10 years. I've spoken at Out and Equal. I've spoken to many corporations, LGBT pride groups, and I even have a digital course on the exact topic that actually just went on sale last week. So it's half price till end of September, but it's on these exact competencies and skills that help us maintain our position of strength.
I love that. So speaking of bouncing back, what's one strategy that you've seen really helps leaders bounce back from setbacks?
Having resources and a network of people they can fall on when they feel defeated or taken over is really important. Excuse me. Whether that's a peer coaching relationship, whether you have mentors. I have 8, by the way, 8 mentors. I have a therapist. I have a coach. And that's my dream team to support me. Sometimes at work, sometimes outside of work. So having my support system is really important. And for me to be in strong health, to be able to swim 4 days a week and kayak 3 or 4 days a week really helps me move through things.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think when I got to experience having a mentor for the first time, the last company I worked with, oh my gosh, I wish we could have been like he could have been my mentor for even a longer period of time, because
Yeah.
it was so good. It was great to have some, number one, that wasn't on my team, that wasn't in
Mhm.
the same department, that I could be able to
Yeah.
possibly, if I had a frustration, to voice that. I know that I've had this conversation with a few other people that they think, if it's possible, now it may not always be possible, but
Mhm.
having an LGBTQ plus mentor is even more powerful, because then that person really can relate to you, because they probably have had the same experience, or if not, at least they're in the same community, so they get it. and i
Absolutely.
and I think that, but I truly believe every employee in any situation, but especially LGBTQ plus employees, should have mentors. I think I can't believe that it took me decades of being an employee in a company till
Mhm.
I finally had a mentor, because I think that, first off, it says a lot about that company,
Yeah.
because they realized how important it was, and they encouraged it from day one. When I got hired, they said, we have
Right.
this mentorship program, you should really look into doing it. I mean, even my boss had encouraged me to even join the LGBT like ERG group. They're like, oh, you should do this. And of course, then in the end, that was one of the best, honestly, that was maybe the best support group we actually had, because
Yeah.
because only one other person in that, the kind of core group that was at least in our Denver office, uh,
Mhm.
was, they were there. The rest of them were literally worldwide. So it was harder to reach out to one of them than it would have been to just walk around the corner and hit someone up at their desk, or,
Yeah.
hit them up on Teams or whatever it was. So
Mhm.
I, you know, when you're having those frustrations, I think that if you have someone to go to, mentor, therapist, coach, whoever it might be, it's going to help you, I think, on the long run. Because,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
I just
for sure.
launched an LGBT mentor program this year for a client, and I can say their name because they allow it. But they're Trax Retail, they're global. And I worked with the leaders of their employee resource group. In June, we launched their mentor program. And it's a 6-month program, and it's going quite well, but it's LGBT members and allies mentored with LGBT members and allies for that exact reason that you
I
talk
love
about.
that.
There's a huge ROI, return on investment, bottom line impact when people can feel supported and that they belong.
I love that. That is so great. That is, I I look forward to hearing. I'm going to hold you to it, Sarah. I'm going to reach out and say, how are they doing? How is their
Yeah,
program doing? Because that's
absolutely.
awesome. That is really good.
Thank
So let's talk a little bit about psychological safety.
you. Yep.
So, for folks listening who aren't familiar with that term, how do you define it, and why is it especially important for the LGBTQ plus employees?
Yeah, so psychological safety, if we look at the theory that has been publicized heavily by Harvard Business School professor Dr. Amy Edmondson, it's a shared belief held by members of the team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. So if they debate or have a different perspective, they won't be embarrassed or ostracized or rejected or pushed out because their perspective might be different and unique. And so when we look at the research about psychological safety historically, we're able to see that teams in industries like aerospace or medical surgery or manufacturing, when teams did not have a high level of psychological safety, rockets crashed because engineers on the ground didn't feel comfortable telling NASA all the parts and pieces weren't 100% perfect. Or, if you look
Wow.
at, surgeries, if a nurse or a, assistant doesn't feel comfortable telling the doctor, hey, we're supposed to amputate the right foot instead of the left, it can have a huge impact on the patient. Or in manufacturing, when processes or systems aren't running well or are injuring people, but people are afraid to speak up to say, hey, this part is broken. Here's how we can fix it. It leads to a lot of overhead costs and a culture that doesn't feel safe and leads to more injuries. Why is this especially important for LGBT employees? In many organizations, Jonathan, we are less represented. We are a minority. And so the more safety we can feel, whether it is psychological safety that we can speak up, take risks, want to try different ways or approaches, the better it is for everybody, especially for LGBT folks being less represented. So, I mean, I think it's huge. And again, not just about performance, but do I feel like I belong enough to take the risk to give my awesome, innovative idea that could be a solution to cancer? It could be, a better, more efficient way to produce a product. It could be a better way to teach a class. And so,
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
we need to feel first safe, included, and that we belong. All employees need to be able to feel like if they want to, they can bring their full self to work. And that's when innovation and collaboration and those results happen. If I don't feel like I belong, I'm not going to speak up. I'm not going to tell you about injuries or possibilities or innovations. I'm just not.
Yeah, you said something very key there, collaborating. And I think that one of the things that I loved and actually really stuck out with me with the last company I was with, but also just me as a coach and even doing this podcast, what I love is collaborating with other LGBTQ plus, professionals, because with these collaborations, we're getting information out that number one, may not even be covered on a podcast before. But second, it gives someone another opportunity to go, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Or, that sounds like a really good idea. Like the LGBTQ plus mentors, and, psychological safety is huge. Like, it makes sense, but it also makes sense for just everyone across the board. Because I think if they're someone who might be disabled or has a stutter or whatever it might be, they might not feel that comfortable to want to speak up because they're afraid that they might sound, I hate to use this word, but they might feel like they're, I guess a better way to say it, they might feel inept to make a comment in a meeting or in a group because of they just didn't feel that comfortable. And I think
people bring different perspectives. So if we're not making it safe for disagreement, for different perspectives, we can't innovate. And without innovation, businesses fall flat. We look at companies who did the same thing. Polaroid camera, for example, Polaroids kind of fell flat when innovation came, and now we can take photos with our smartphones, and the world is changing faster and faster, it seems, every day.
So true. So let's just to follow up, what's one small thing that any leader could do tomorrow to start building more psychological safety in the workplace?
Yep. And Amy Edmondson says this in her TED Talks, but admit you don't know everything.
Wait, we don't? No, just kidding.
You don't. You can say, and admit that we as leaders don't have all the answers and that we can fail. Saying, hey, I need your help with this because I don't know how to fix this problem, find the cure, solve the case myself. Help me. So knowing that we are failable, we can make mistakes and fail, and that we don't have all the answers, and calling on others to step up and take a role in solutions or possibilities.
I love that. And honestly, if you have a leader that wants to ask for help and may not know the answer right away, I feel like that actually makes them a stronger leader because because if you don't know everything, which we don't, I think that if you can sit there, hey, let me get some better, research on this, to come back with you, to chat with you, to even just, even if it was a question to like the C-suite team, hey, let's just have a topic about this. Let's talk about this, how we can be better as a company, how we can be better as leaders overall for the organization. I think that when you can sit there and say, I'm not exactly sure how to tackle this, but let's work together and find out a solution so we can have a better result to share to the masses.
Absolutely.
So, as I mentioned in my introduction, you've worked with clients across multiple countries. Have you noticed cultural differences in how kindness, inclusion, or even leadership is expressed?
Yeah, definitely. In some cultures, kindness is expressed more directly. There's lots of verbal encouragement, visible support, but in other locations or countries or even industries, it's shown more subtly through actions rather than words. Inclusion also looks different depending on the legal frameworks
Mm-hmm.
and cultural norms around LGBTQ plus identity specifically. In some countries, unfortunately, it is still illegal to be a member of the LGBT community. So a very, huge end of the spectrum from being comfortable publicly out, publicly open, publicly safe to being 100% in the closet because you could be put in jail or it is illegal for being lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, intersex, asexual, and all of the other types of LGBTQ. What's consistent, though, everywhere is that when leaders show genuine respect and empathy, people thrive. So, regardless of what the legalities are or cultural norms, if leaders show respect and empathy, people thrive. How might change from place to that's going to change, but the
Mm-hmm.
impact of the kindness and the inclusion on the performance is universal. And I think that's extremely important to remember.
So, with that, are there any lessons from those cross-cultural experiences that you've had that US-based leaders could benefit from?
Yeah, US based leaders. I think as challenging as some might feel the United States is today, based on changes in leadership or politics or economics, we, in terms of LGBT inclusion, are in a much stronger or culture, community, country than many others. And I'm thankful for that every day.
Absolutely, yeah. It does really make a huge difference overall, yeah. So your last question for you. Last question that you got to learn about.
Yeah.
So your work blends high performance and inclusion. For leaders listening who feel pressure to focus on results first, how do you convince them that inclusion is a results driver?
Yeah, so I always feel like inclusion is never separate from performance. It's what drives it. So teams that feel included, they're more innovative, more engaged, less likely to leave members of the team, regardless if we're talking about race or abilities or sexual orientation or political views or any race, anything like that. And this translates directly to business results. For leaders focused on the bottom line, I often share data that shows inclusive organizations continually outperform others. Accenture did a study 5 years ago that showed that the gap between the level of inclusion that executives thought their company had and the level of inclusion employees surveyed felt that they had, it was a 20% gap from what executives thought their inclusion score, if they were to measure it, would have, and what employees felt the level of inclusion was. This was 1.05 trillion with a T US dollars. And that was in 2020. And we
Wow.
of opportunity cost. And what that says to me is that companies, businesses, industries that are not inclusive have a massive opportunity cost, not only with their talent, but the perception by their clients. For example, I do not shop at Target anymore because Target decided to let go of their DEI. I'm not the
Mm-hmm.
only one, and that's
Nope.
being shown by their business results that are, their quarterly results that are showing a decline. And so knowing that there's a direct impact on bottom line results, whether people feel the company is inclusive, whether employees feel it, whether customers feel it, that's a pretty key and clear message. When you
Yeah.
prioritize inclusion, you're also prioritizing performance. Inclusion is never nice to have, Jonathan, but it's
Yeah.
required for successful business.
Well, and I have to pipe in and say, my partner and I know we don't shop at Target anymore. Like we're like, no, you got to change your ways. I don't know why. To me, the whole DEI, attacking DEI and want it removed, I still just don't get it, because it's not, as we know, it's not just LGBTQ plus. It's disabled. It's mothers coming from maternity leave. It's so many things that, yes, LGBTQ plus folks have probably been showcased maybe a little bit more in it. But I worked with people who had a disability and who, uh, had, I wouldn't say issues, but they were very thankful for those policies put into place. And when those, luckily, were the company I worked with last, they're private and they're family owned, so they didn't have to listen to the administration. They kept their strength, and they're like, hey, and they're also a UK based company. They're not a US based company, so they can stick with it. And I love that they stuck, to their guns, and they're like, no, first off, we don't actually have to listen to that, number one. And number two, this helps. They understand how inclusivity strengthens the company. They've made it's right on their very front page of their website. They talk about inclusivity. They talk about how important that is to grow them as a company, but also grow them inside as a great place to work, a place that you want to spend, long-term employment with. Now, for me, I just, things were happening in a different way. And personally, I'm in a better place as it is. So,
that's great.
but,
Wow.
So here's some fun questions I'm going to throw out to you. And these are considered kind of rapid fire. So just think whatever comes to your head first.
Okay.
Don't try to think too much. I don't think you probably will have to, but I've had a few in the past that have thought a little bit too much, and I was like, this is rapid fire for a reason. Yep. You're not supposed to think about it too much. But so, morning fuel check. Are you a coffee person, a tea person, or are you something totally different to kick off your day?
A water with lemon.
Ooh.
Unless it's winter. If it's winter, I'll have a hot green tea with honey.
Great. Those are great. Honestly, they say you should have water with lemon every day to begin with, and how many people really do? I noticed that when you had that earlier. And green tea with honey. Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, we all probably need more green tea in our life.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. I will admit I am a coffee person, but we need to invest in some lemons. Get some lemons so I can do some water with lemon every day.
Nice.
We have green tea. I know we have green tea. So once we start getting cooler weather, I probably will start drinking that green tea. I feel like that cooler weather's never going to come at this point, but
it's cold off here in Boston today. It's only 70. It was 90 or 100 a week or so ago. Anyways.
I wish we're going to be close to 90 at least half the week. And then we start cooling down. But
cool.
All right. So throwback time. What was the very first job that you had, and what's one thing that it taught you?
So when I was 5 years old, I worked for my father. He's a builder and a carpenter, has run his own company since I was born. And he gave me the job of sweeping his shop at age 5. I think I made like 25 cents. It wasn't a long-term position, but I
Yeah,
learned the importance of quality and of doing a good job starting very young.
I love that. That's awesome. All right. So I love this because they say leaders are readers. If you could recommend just one book that every leader should read at least once in their life, what would it be and why? And it sounds like you might have it near you, or are you?
I think, I'm thinking about it, and I think it would probably be a book by Ken Blanchard. I've been a partner of the Ken Blanchard company for over 15 years. Um, and his work has been, 50 years in the making, but I like his
Mhm.
book, The 1 Minute Manager. It's been rewritten a few times by Ken, and Ken in partnerships with others, but it's a nice fable story in fable format that helps people to understand how to manage people. When I get leaders that call that says, I have a group of new managers, I don't know what to do. I come in and I facilitate situational leadership so that they know how to most effectively manage people, which is different from how to lead people, but
Yeah.
is a little bit of overlap.
Nice. And I am familiar with that book. That was a great book. So I agree. It is definitely something that a book that everyone, especially every leader, should have.
Right.
So, one word legacy. If people could use only one word to describe your leadership style, what would you hope it is, and what makes that word meaningful to you?
Energy. Energy. I show up, whether I'm speaking, teaching, facilitating, consulting, volunteering in the community, and I bring a high level of energy, and I'm known for that.
I love that. I mean, I don't think you'd be as effective if you didn't have
No,
energy.
I
Just,
don't think so either.
yeah, you have to have the energy. So I love that. That's great. All right, we have come to the very last question. This has been
Okay.
so much fun, Sarah. Thank you. I really do. This has been very educational. I know my listeners and will I know they've enjoyed this time. So,
Awesome.
um, what key piece of advice or actionable tip could you leave our listeners today?
Yep. Um, I think it's important to remember every morning that we get up, that we wake up in the morning, that we have another shot at this game of life. Regardless of craziness or successes happening in the world, every day we get to wake up is an important time to celebrate and make the most of it.
I love that. That is true. I feel like we let too many things on our devices control how we start our days, and I think that's great. I love that. Yeah,
Awesome.
we have another day. We have another day to breathe. We have another day to make memories. We have another day to make a difference. I love that. So, Sarah, this conversation has been a powerful reminder that leadership isn't just about metrics, it's about people.
Absolutely.
And you've shown us that kindness and accountability aren't opposites, that resilience can be built, and that creating psychological safety is one of the smartest investments any organization can make. For our LGBTQ plus listeners, I hope you walk away knowing that you can thrive at work without hiding who you are, and that there are leaders like Sarah who are building spaces where your full self is not just welcome, but it's valued. So if you want to learn more about Sarah's work or explore her leadership, coaching, and LGBTQ plus solutions, check out the links in the show notes. I highly encourage you guys to check out her website. Oh my God, she has so much great information that is out there. You can find our website. You can find her on LinkedIn. There's a link for her LGBTQ plus solutions. You can find her on Blue Sky, YouTube. And as always, if this conversation inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And so, until next time, stay empowered, stay out, lead with kindness, and keep building workplaces where everyone can thrive as their full, authentic selves.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.